to take a risk. I know that you're never really ready, and you never will be ready. So I think that a lot of the times, a lot of what held me back was I'm not ready, whether it's financially or physically or mentally prepared, but I think you just have to dive in.
Today's guest is one of the most fascinating people that I've ever had on the show. She's a speech-language pathologist, competitive bodybuilder, and an entrepreneur of not one, but two successful businesses. Tanya Manriquez is the owner of West Texas Speech Therapy and Fuego, which is a restaurant in West Texas as well. In this episode, we dive deep into her incredible journey of uncovering the secrets to success in business and life. We'll explore how to stay motivated, adapt to your customers, and even overcome brick walls that inevitably arise in business. Tanya, welcome to the show. How you doing?
Thank you. I'm doing well.
I'm excited. So I know this healthcare industry well and have had my own challenges of both working in it and then also from a business side. So I'm excited to kind of dive into some of those topics.
Yeah.
Because you've managed to go from practitioner for a number of years to helping another business start their own practice to now starting your own practice. And we're going to get into all the lessons learned from beginning to end. But before we do, I would actually like to dive into any sort of business or entrepreneurship in your family. Because if I remember correctly, I heard you talking about how actually your parents have kind of been their own type of hustlers. Is that true?
Yeah. So my dad started working for a trucking company. When he was younger, he dropped out of high school in his junior year and he went to go work for a trucking company. And he was like, I think I can sell dirt and I can sell rocks. And so growing up, I just was around dirt and rocks. And then I remember seeing like it was a lucrative business because then like our house got bigger and their business got bigger. And then they had like lots of employees. And I was like, oh, okay. So that was Dad. Mom was a teacher for about 15, 20 years when she like resigned and went to go help Dad with that. So she was a teacher. She had her mid-management degree and was going to go be a principal. About that time she left to go help run his business. And so they established this big like demolition, construction and landscaping type business, and it grew. And I think growing up and seeing that, seeing them and how they treated their employees and what kind of like bosses they were, and they were more like leaders, and how their employees were like their friends and family. And it turned out we would have all these gatherings, and which now I know it as team building, and I know it as like culture and work culture. I kind of saw that. And so I grew up seeing that. And so I think that something I always wanted to eventually do was to be an entrepreneur and have my own business. And what that was, I didn't know. Of course, I had all these ideas growing up. But it all kind of fell into place. So, yeah.
So dirt and rocks wasn't your future plan?
No, dirt and rocks wasn't my plan. I sure did play in the dirt and rocks, though. I remember growing up and like being in these giant piles of caliche, because back in West Texas, it's a lot of caliche, like a lot of caliche. Once you get like so far into the ground, like a foot or two, it's just solid caliche.
What is that?
It's like really like hard. They use it like for like roads, like to build like country roads and stuff, and it compacts and it hardens like cement. And so it's an alternative, I think, to like roads out in West Texas and a lot of places as the initial startup to the road before they add like asphalt and stuff. And it's white and powdery. So I just remember like being covered in like this white powder all the time, having dirt and rocks in my shoes, and not knowing, but that was like the business of selling like dirt and rocks.
What did your dad, do you happen to know if he bought just like a plot of land and started digging and then trying to find people that wanted to buy it?
You're absolutely right. I remember it was a hole, and then the hole got bigger, and the hole got bigger, and then there was like signs like, warning, stay back, like danger, and seeing loaders and big giant equipment coming and going, and they were loading up these like 18-wheeler truck beds of trucks and taking them out to the highways to like the city was building roads and stuff, and it became this like big operation. But it started a hole and then it turned into a pit, and it was like this huge. So yeah, he like dug out the ground and aggregate and stuff like that.
Is he still doing it?
Yeah, he's still doing it.
Do you have siblings?
I have 2 siblings.
Are they involved in that business?
Nope.
No.
My brother, my youngest brother, he left everything and moved to Maui.
Okay. I mean, that's a good place to move.
Yeah. He just turned 30. And
okay.
So no, he didn't want to be involved with the dirt and the rocks. He left to Maui and was going to go be free and live off the land. And so, yeah, that's
Like on the beach? Just
on the beach. Yeah.
okay. Is he a surfer?
Uh-huh.
Okay.
And a skater.
Okay. That adds up.
So yeah,
It's an interesting
he's
transition.
happy. Yeah. Uh-huh. So he says he'll be back one day. Maybe he'll help out with dirt and rocks at a later time.
And what about your other sibling?
My other sibling passed away.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's okay. He was 21. He probably would have gone into the business. He was more business oriented and more responsible, and not so much like I'm going to give everything up and go to Maui. So yeah, he was in college. He was at a party late night and he accidentally overdosed.
Damn.
Yeah, 21. I think that was part of like, I mean, I think that happening and then my other brother leaving. So I'm really like by myself with my parents. So it was almost like, yeah, I did want to be an entrepreneur and I like had things I wanted to do, but at the same time I was like, I'm all they have. So like I need to do something
Yeah.
so that they, maybe one day I'll have to take care of them, or maybe one day, so something to be proud of, So
sure.
I think like one day I think that almost pushed me harder.
Yeah. Yeah. I was going to ask if you don't mind sharing, like, did that force you to just like grow up really quick when that happened, or how did that
Absolutely. Yeah.
affect you?
Yeah. My parents, I mean, them being like successful and hardworking. And I think they always like did for us and provided for us. And then, so after my brother passed away, he was 21 at the time. My younger brother was 10. So that was his older brother. So I think after that happened, that's kind of how the Maui story ends up. It's like he was kind of lost into, just he probably needed counseling. After that happened, that was his big brother whom he loved. And he was going to college. He was like, I want to go to college like my brother. He wanted to be a pharmacist. I want to be a pharmacist like my brother. Like that was his role model. And my parents were super proud of him too. And I think after that, that accident, everything fell apart.
Yeah.
Life fell apart. I was 22 at the time. I was just a year older than him, but my parents both kind of went their separate ways. Started drinking. My mom fell into a deep depression. My 10-year-old brother just kind of, he went off and with the kid down the street, started smoking cigarettes. Probably needed therapy, like in counseling, but we were all caught up in our own depression, in our own lives, that we weren't there for him. He needed a hug. He needed counseling. He needed therapy. And he was 10, 11 years old. So then until like 6th grade, then it was junior high, but he never got the help he needed. He probably still needs that help today,
Totally.
And by the age of like 16, he was kind of, doing drugs and lost, really just depressed and stuff. And that's kind of how he spent his childhood.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it definitely, I think, pushed me into being able to be there, step up for everybody.
Totally. There's a really interesting theory around losing somebody at a younger age, in the sense that it kind of teaches you that the world's not safe. And in a lot of ways that can rather go often obviously two directions, right? It can rather show you like, okay, I'm actually gonna have to do something with my life to make sure that like I protect myself in whatever form that takes, whether it's like money or whatever it is. Or it can inspire you the other direction, right? Of like, screw it, what's the point? Forget about it kind of deal. So yeah, it's really interesting. You kind of had a couple of those in your family.
Yeah, I've had several. But yeah, I think that kind of pushed me, like, that brother passed away, that brother's, he's not doing well, mom's not doing well, dad's not doing well. Like, well, I have to take care of me. Maybe I have to take care of them too. And so I need to do something. I need to really step it up. And I just got super hyper focused on school and finishing. And then even then, like, what am I going to do next? And I think ever since then, I got like some adult induced ADHD. I was diagnosed at some point because they were like, I was like, doctor, like I can't sit still. Like I always have to do these things, and I always have to stay busy, and good and bad. Like it's led me to be super successful, but bad, like I don't sit and I like can't chill sometimes, and it's just like I can't sit down because I feel like if I sit down, I'm going to miss the opportunity to do something or build something, or I need to be somewhere. So it's just, it's been crazy.
I have the same issue. I tend to burn my candle all the way to its wick's end, often almost every single day. I think there's like rarely a day that goes by that I'm not hitting the bed completely exhausted, because it's very hard for me to turn it off. I've learned to obviously adopt mindfulness practice and meditation and going on walks, and that's helped dramatically. But yeah, I have a tendency to just like, if left to my own devices, I will just keep going, if not taking time for breaks. It's funny, I've become more interested in just insanely boring businesses. Like I know that it's often been described as like black gold, just this idea of like selling dirt and rock. I was just in Minnesota this past weekend with my girlfriend visiting some family. That's where I'm originally from. And I drove by it was essentially like a gravel pit. And I remember driving by it and I was like, man, just like reflecting back on, I grew up, like that's literally been there for as long as I've been alive. And I'm 36. And I'm sitting there driving by and I'm thinking like, I wonder how lucrative that business is. You know what I mean? It's been there for at least my lifetime. It's still there. They're still pulling gravel out of this pit. And I'm like, damn, like that's actually an incredible business.
That's
like,
crazy. Yeah.
Like I love businesses like that. So it's cool to hear your father.
Yeah. With dirt, gravel, rock, caliche, aggregate. And it's a giant hole and they're pulling, aggregate and material and making a living for it. He's like been doing this 35 years.
Is it just a matter of like until there's not enough dirt left in the ground, or does it just keep coming? Like when does it end? I don't even know.
Well, he's on his second hole.
Okay. How much land is it? Does he have? Do you know?
It's about 20 acres.
Oh, that's it.
Each one's like 20. So yeah, and then he acquires more, and then he does demolition as well. So then like he'll go demolish. Has to be environmentally friendly. So like cement and just like natural materials can go back into the pit to help like fill up the pit with just like natural materials. And then it's a cycle. So it's like he sells it coming out, but then he still sells going back into the pit.
That makes sense.
Then he continues. But it's like, it's dirt, rocks, boulders. Like, and he's like, yep, that rock there is $400. Okay. It's okay. And that rock there came from, and that's a moss rock, okay, but rocks, dirt.
Does he like it?
Yeah, he loves it.
Does he? Do you think he's always loved it, or do you think he started to love it when he noticed like it's a high demand, it's a good business?
Both, because his grandfather like taught him, like his father left him when he was younger, so his grandfather raised him. Yeah. And his grandfather like taught him to garden, plant, just to like reuse materials and recycle and I think he grew up on a ranch. And so having like the acreage he also has horses and goats and he plants trees and he's got the pit and the rock. I think like he's just always been attracted just to the earth materials and working the earth, if that makes sense.
Yes.
And so, because he can tell you, I have 136 trees planted here. I'm like, how do you know? Like, how have you kept track of every tree that you've ever planted? So I think both. I think he always had a love for like the earth, ranch, and natural resources, and then it became a lucrative business. So it's like perfect. Like that's his life. He plants trees. He lives on a ranch. He takes dirt and rocks and he sells them. Like great.
Do you think he'll ever get out of it, or do you think he'll just do it to the end of the time?
I think he'll do it to the end of time. Like he's had like 2 knee replacements. Like his health wasn't the best a couple years ago. He got diagnosed with myasthenia gravis. Like he was in ICU, like we were like, and the doctor was like, this is degenerative and it's forever. Like you can take medication to keep it, from having episodes, but then he like got on a diet, did exercise and has been in remission for 2 years and he's back out on the ranch. Like he like nothing can hold him down. Like he's been through it, both again with the loss of my brother, psychologically, depression and physical ailments like whole muscle weakening, like he had like drooling, drooping, all of that. Couldn't eat for a while and then he's fine now. Like he doesn't even take any medication. Like he lost 100 pounds, lost the diabetes with it, the high blood pressure with it. Like he goes to the gym like at least 3 to 4 times a week, like totally changed his life around. And the purpose of that was not just because he wanted to live, but because he wants to go run his business. Like,
totally.
He might not be in the loader anymore because I think actually he still jumps in the loader and it's a big loader and those 18-wheelers. Not as much as he used to, but he wants to be involved.
I love that.
And all of that.
That's something I've started pondering a lot more about as well, is just like generational wealth and thinking about basically like recession-proof businesses. Like that feels like one of those businesses, right? Where it's like, it's always going to be in demand as long as we're going to continue to build houses and people are going to buy land. There's going to be need for this, which is interesting because like we don't have to jump too far ahead, but because you started a restaurant, which in my opinion feels like a very hard business and not always very lucrative, and it has incredible challenges, and it's definitely very very, very hard. And so it's interesting to see that you've decided to do something like that. But curious, like how is this just personal passion? Like,
Yeah.
Okay.
It's almost like a challenge to myself. Like, what can I do? What I can't, like, there's nothing I can't do. Let me go see. And I get some idea in my head, which can be scary because I'm like, I can't even predict myself, or like, because if I have a thought in my head or an idea or something, like, I won't rest until it's like done. Like, I'm gonna implement it, and I'm gonna do whatever it takes, not even to show anybody, or just like almost to prove to myself, like, oh, okay, I did it. So the restaurant was like a passion project. I had this vision. I'd go to Vegas and Scottsdale and stuff, and I'd be like, oh, I think I'll do that.
Just in your town, right? Like take this idea and plop it in your town. Interesting. I'd be curious, because I always also think about what you see as the business often isn't the business. And let me describe what I mean. Is like you get into the restaurant business and you think it's maybe about food and customer service. And I'm not saying those aren't part of the business, but then oftentimes you realize, actually, no, I'm in like the business of hiring and recruiting, or vice versa. Is like you get into, we'll say like the gym business, and you're like, oh, I'm about like selling gym memberships. And no, it's like you're actually in the marketing and sales business, because like it's really hard to get people to go, you know what I mean? So it's always like, what business are you actually in? And so I'm curious as to, with a restaurant business, like what do you feel like the business is you're actually in? Like what's the challenge?
Marketing.
Yeah.
Content, creating content. The day I didn't post one thing on social media was a day like I had like 10 to 15 less customers.
Damn, interesting. I would not have guessed that.
I discovered that on my own, not having marketing experience, other than like my marketing for my clinic or my, therapy, why speaking, like I did door to door, face to face, networking, things like that. But the restaurant, it was like, it's all social media. And so it happened by accident. I mean, I know that marketing is important, and I know that like social media on our phones, like I know that, but I didn't know the importance of it until I was in a position where like I left town a few days, and I was the marketer for the restaurant too. I was, I was the owner, I was a marketer. And so I left town a few days, and I forgot to post. I forgot to tell people to post a margarita. I don't know. Don't post anything. And then I look at the cells and I look at the cameras, and I'm like, where's all the customers at?
Yeah.
There's no customers. Look, we had 2 people all day. And then I'm like, wait a minute. I haven't posted anything for 3 days. And I contact the staff and the servers. I was like, quick, make a TikTok, quick, make a reel. And I'm like, I tell my restaurant manager, I was like, go to the kitchen and her name's Luce. Go get Luce, like making some tacos, quick. And then you can add music. So I like delegate these tasks, and I'm like, okay, send all your content to me, and I'll like come up with something. I start posting, and then we're back up. Like sales are back up, customers are back in, and everything's flowing again. But for those 3 days that I didn't post anything and didn't mention, so I'm like, that's my main like job now, is I need to make sure I have events, I have marketing, I have pictures, and I have content, or nobody's gonna come to the restaurant. Yeah, our regulars will be there. The everyday 6 o'clock, Bud Light man is gonna be there. The oil field worker who lives in the neighborhood is gonna stop by for his regular enchiladas. Like we have a few regulars, but not posting. I saw that, and like I was like, wow, that's the importance of keeping it fresh on people's minds. So I turned out to be that like consumed all my time. I would wake up in the morning and be like, post. Before bed I'd be like, post. And I hired people to do that, but they didn't have my vision. I was like, wait. And so it was like food, and I was like, wait, what about the people? I feel like people want to see the people that are actually coming to the restaurant. So it was like I had this vision of what I wanted and what I wanted my concept to be, but I didn't see it when I hired other people. So I was like, I'll do it myself, but it was like a few times it was like the page started filling up with like tacos, enchiladas, like it was just food. And I'd look at the Instagram page and be like, it's just food. Like, we want to see people.
Totally.
People want to see people. So then I hired a videographer, and was like, hey, you're going to come at night when it's packed, when the DJ's here. We're going to like, get some footage of this. And so he goes in, and we do a video, and the DJ's spinning, and it's packed in there, and we're dancing, and then bam, customers and Instagram followers, and bam, everything comes back up again. So we took it away from the food, because I was like, hey, wait a minute, where's my people at? Where's my customers? And then went that direction. So it was always trying to figure out what we were missing. Is everything balanced? Things like that. But like, you're right. I went into the restaurant business. My main purpose was it was a community. Like I'm always about bringing people together. and customer service. So the therapy I do, I'm helping people. Essentially, there was this new, so they built some suites, like in the medical park area where I'm at. It's called Medical Park Drive. And so I'm like, I wonder what they're going to put in there. And I'm like, wouldn't it be cool if there was like a bar that we could just walk to for happy hour? So I'm like, I think I'll do that. That's how that happened. Main purpose being, I didn't even think about the money it was going to take to build it.
Totally.
Didn't think about the cost of liquor taxes, beverage, gross food. Like I didn't think about that. Didn't think about hiring. I was like, I want people to gather, after work and have a good time. And that was my primary purpose. And
why didn't you just do like events? Like, why did you need to open a restaurant? That's like
I thought about that later because what people were calling for once I did city health inspections and once I did TABC licensing, which is crazy, is people were calling me to rent it.
Oh yeah, I'm sure.
Bridal shower, baby shower, engagement party. Like that's what people were calling me for, to rent as a venue. And I'm like, you know how long I spent and how much money to build that kitchen and from scratch, restaurant equipment. To get my TBC license alone was like, I was filling out contracts in blood, It was crazy because I wanted people to gather. Like, look what happened.
Yeah.
But it turned out to be good. Like it was, again, just a passion project. I picked up a lot of stuff from Llano and Fredericksburg at all the old pawn shops, window seals, old window frames, door frames.
What were you doing in the meantime while you were building this restaurant? Were you still working in the other
seeing patients from 8:30 a.m. to 5:30 p.m.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Damn.
Yeah. I was seeing like 12 patients, 13 patients a day.
On top of trying to run a restaurant.
Building it and then try to run it.
Sounds painful.
Yeah, it's crazy. But almost like I put myself in these situations because I'm like, if I'm super busy, then I won't have time to stop and think about like, what the hell am I doing?
Sure.
So like the busier I am, then I can't stop myself. Like I put myself in these situations where like, I almost have to like hold myself accountable. Or once I started and signed the lease on that sweet spot, like I was like, no backing out now. Gave a deposit, stuff like I was like, here I go. I put myself in these situations because as like successful and busy as I am, if I don't have a lot going on, the opposite happens where I'll like get like unmotivated and lazy and almost like depressed because I'm like, I have to be doing something. It's crazy. And so the restaurant was getting built. I was seeing patients. Then once the restaurant got built, it was started out with the marketing and events and things like that. Then we didn't have kitchen one night, kitchen help. So I was back there making enchiladas and washing dishes and making tacos. I got my TBC license because I had to make drinks and they'd ask me for some drink that I've never even heard of, like alligator mud. I'd be like, okay, with an extra shot, okay, shake it, okay. So I was like Googling how to make these drinks. I'd be like, bear with me just a second. My bartender's not here today. I'm making like drinks and stuff. And so, yeah. And then doing therapy the next day. And then closing. And the weekends were crazy because, you got to escort people out. They don't want to leave when the lights turn on and last call.
How did you figure out your menu?
I think it was supposed to start out, things are always evolving in business, right? Like
sure.
You have this idea and it's supposed to be simple, but then it's not so simple anymore. And so initially it was going to be tapas and it was just going to be like 5 or 6 like little items. Well, you have to almost adapt to like demographically to your people, your population. Yeah. Well, I'm in West Texas. I have a lot of workers that are coming out after work. They don't want tapas. Like they want a fat plate of enchiladas and tacos. So like those 3 little mini flautas or
like,
nachos. Yeah. Like what is this?
Yeah.
And, okay. So we made the plates bigger. So then I was like, then we went all blown out like Mexican restaurant, like give them what they want, birria tacos. And, we had the most like populars, like the flautas and enchiladas and stack it up, give them those plates, rice and beans and margs. Like, so that's so then that evolved to changing the menu from tapas, 5 simple things, 1 dessert, couple cocktails to like 20 items on the menu, fajitas, mixed chicken, shrimp, appetite. Like it got to be this, like a menu, like you open a book, not like Cheesecake Factory menu.
Yeah. I've seen those. It's overwhelming.
But, maybe a quarter of that. Still, you like had to open the book and like it was like 2 pages of food. And it was always like, how can I reduce this for food costs and for like, how can we, but it was like, I couldn't even eliminate anything because everything was selling and everything was being utilized food merch wise. And so we just kept it going. Just make sure you're stocked in the kitchen and you have your cooks and your servers. And we just flew. We just went with it. Once you get going, you almost don't stop to think about it until it's done.
Totally. So a couple of things I want to pull out of that for people. One is I like that you hit on the fact that you realized that you were in the marketing business, which honestly, it sounds obvious, but it makes a lot of sense now. It honestly reminds me of, are you familiar with Crumble Cookie? Mm-hmm. They fell into that same camp, I felt like, because at the end of the day, it's a cookie. But if you've ever seen their Instagram or their social media, and they really got big when TikTok came out, was they essentially have like food porn for cookies. And it's pretty clear. I mean, to this day, my girlfriend still shows me like the weekly new cookie on their Instagram, and they make it very visually appealing. Mm-hmm. And so I'm guarantee you that drives probably almost all of their sales, if I had to guess, realizing that they're for sure in the marketing business. But the other thing I wanted to pull out of that too was your ability to listen and adapt. Because again, just as you mentioned, you get into a business and you wanted to do one thing, but when you listen to the market and you listen for what people are actually asking for versus like what you want to bring to the market, you're going to do a lot better. It's like the classic, like if all things created equal, the factor you want to control the most is a starving crowd. And it's like, okay, if your starving crowd is hungry for burritos, then it's like, well, then you should probably sell them burritos, right? Like,
Yeah.
It seems obvious, but most people honestly miss the boat on that, is they want to do what they own personally want to do because like whatever ego issues or whatever the case might be. But so you are definitely a grinder and a hustler and have a lot of passions to continue to work towards things. And I also roll into that camp of just, I think momentum is amazing. Like once you get rolling on something, whether it's working out or a business or a book, is that you just want to keep going. Has that ever ran you into like a brick wall? Like
Absolutely.
And like, what do you do when that happens?
Yeah. And mostly that's financial because I take on more projects than I should. I don't finish one project before I'm like, what am I going to do next? And I need to learn to like tell myself to slow myself down. But no, it's happened where like I want to continue the project and I'm like, oh, wait, funds. And in my case, then I've gone and, maybe I'll go get a loan or maybe I'll like finance myself for my other business. But then what happens is I end up taking on too much. And that's how I end up running into brick walls is I'm like, I should have finished one thing, let your business get established enough before you move on to the next project. And I'm just bad even today at like taking on more than I can handle.
Because your first business, unless I'm mistaken, was West Texas Speech Therapy. Mm-hmm. And you're still to this day running this, correct? Mm-hmm. And how long do you feel like it took you to kind of get to that point where you're like, okay, I can actually pull back from this? Like how long do you think that took?
About 5 years.
Okay, that seems fitting. And I like that you said that, like 5 years. Like most people probably hear that and they're like, "What? 5 years? That's forever." And it's like, well, I feel like 5 to 10, honestly, is like kind of standard for most businesses. If you're starting from nothing.
Yeah. And even with the restaurant, I was like, why is initially like the first year, I was like, why is it slow? Well, it starts big because it's new. When something's new, like the crowds come and people were mad because they didn't have a seat. There was a wait, and then it's okay, and they go on to the next new thing. But then nonetheless, that's when the marketing kicks in and you have to continue. But it's like, it takes time to get established. And I have to remind myself, it takes time to get established, whether you're selling rocks, snow cones, Mexican food, or you're giving a service like therapy. Like, it takes time to get established. Word of mouth, like I'm real big on like word of mouth and things. And so I think that 5 years was the point when like I was like, not that I can totally step back. I'm still like, I feel like I'm a hamster still on the wheel in my business. Like I attended a Dave Ramsey seminar like last year and he was like, what stage of business are you in? And there's like these like 5 stages. And like the first one said like the treadmill stage or something else. And so then some people were circling like the 3rd stage and I was like, treadmill. It was like I'm in the treadmill stage still.
Yeah, running.
But I think I could if I had more providers in my area, I wouldn't have to work as much. But I think honestly, even at this point, my customers, my admin, my people in place, my employees who've been with me from the beginning, it's established, it's safe, it's lucrative. And we're in a good place. And I think year 5 was when I left my little suite that was built like in 1970, my 2 therapy room suite. and got like my first like $1.3 million business loan and built this 5,000 square foot facility with the gym. Was year 5. But I manifested. I feel like I told myself when I first walked into this little squeaky building, in about 5 years, like this is for now, but in 5 years sounds like a long time, but as long as you're working towards it, like eventually I'm going to move out of here and I'm going to have my own building. And it was crazy because year 5 was when that happened.
Damn.
Yeah.
Do you think it would have changed if you thought about it as in year 3? Like, you know what I mean?
Maybe so, because
I
think so, because I think I would have maybe been forced to speed things up a little bit, whether it was hire another therapist or whether it was market a little bit more. But maybe so, because my lease was for 3 years initially. But like I gave myself, it could have been 3 years, but I think I extended it a little bit longer. But I bought this piece of land in this medical park area, and I was like, one day I'm going to build my clinic right here. Maybe year 5, and it was year 5. Which was 2 years ago.
Are you familiar with Parkinson's law? Mm-mm. Basically, it says things expand or collapse to the amount of time that you give to them. So if you give yourself a week to do it or a year to do it, that's essentially how long it often takes. It's called Parkinson's law.
That's crazy.
What?
I got chills. Yeah.
There's a lot of truth to it, right? Like think about a classic example of this. I mean, we can all relate to this. Is when you're in school and your teacher's like, all right, the paper's due on X date. And then somehow the last day you have friggin' 8 hours before this paper's due and you finish the paper, right? Mm-hmm. Like I think that's true for most things in life is like whatever timeline you give yourself, whether it's real or fake, often is what it takes, right?
Yeah. So. Year 5 moved out of that little office suite and into like my dream building. So yeah, year 5.
Damn. So let's talk about some of those growing pains then. So let's consider other health-related business owners, entrepreneurs, people who are starting their practices. What's maybe some of the earlier lessons in starting that practice and some of the advice you would have given to your younger self or anybody else in that circumstance?
I think I would have researched maybe a little more just startup business in general. And I know that, there's several businesses and each one has their kind of guidelines and but essentially business 101, like research, demographics, location.
Because did you know that you had a hungry market when you were stepping into it?
No.
Okay. Because you obviously do, because you have a ton of clients out there, or patients, I should say.
I didn't. I did it because I wanted to kind of be independent and I wanted to kind of be in control of my schedule but I didn't have plans for it to grow the way that it did. But like advice to my younger self would have definitely been like, be prepared for growth. I know you might not think that that's your goal. I was like, I'm going to stay small. It's going to be me and maybe one therapist, and this is going to be easy. But again, looking at the demand, like we were talking about the restaurant and the customers and what the need in the area is, there was a need. I speak Spanish. I'm close to the border. There was extra need with Spanish-speaking patients. Then the need was there. So I'm like, I didn't have that plan. I wasn't prepared for growth. I had patients out in the hall. I had probably, like looking back, if I knew that there was a need and I, did my homework a little better, I would have probably gotten a bigger suite. I wouldn't know. I might have done things a little bit different, maybe not. But the growth came quick and it was overwhelming. I wasn't prepared. I guess I just went in kind of with the restaurant, I just kind of walk into something and I'm not prepared. But I think advice to myself even today that I need to follow is like, be prepared and be prepared that even though your idea is small, that it could potentially grow and you need to be prepared to grow with it.
Totally. Yeah. A good litmus test for that, which is something a mentor gave me a long time ago, is he was basically like, if let's say Kim Kardashian or something posted about your business right now, it's like, could you handle that intake of what's going to be a swarm of new potential customers? And if the answer is no, then it's like, okay, clearly we have some things we need to work out. And obviously not everyone's going to be in that place. And obviously the answers for most people is probably going to be like, well, no, like I couldn't handle 1,000, 10,000, 100,000 new people. But just like having some system, right? To
having
be able to
a plan in place. Yeah. If this were to happen, how would I even mentally preparing yourself and having a plan? What would I do in that case? Because it could happen. At the restaurant, I had 2 servers one time and I thought at any time, 2 servers isn't enough. Yeah, it's enough for our daily, operations. But at any time, and I told them this, I had a little meeting. I had meetings sometimes. And I would be like, all right, guys, like I knew what I was doing with no restaurant experience. I would be like, all right, if a bus rolled in right now, because our capacity was like 65 or 70, if a bus rolled in right now with 60 people, like, would we be able to handle that crowd with this one bartender and two servers, or one server sometimes? They'd be like, no. And I'd be like, you have to be. And I would tell them, you have to be prepared for this. Well, one day a bus rolls up.
Of course.
It's a bus. It's a local bus. A guy has this local bus and he takes all of his co-work. It's a tattoo studio. And so he takes like all of his team and their wives and like their friends. He fills up. He's got a personal bus. It's a bus. And the bus shows up and the bus opens the doors. And like 25 people. That's aside from like our, bar and our 1 or 2 tables we had. So we had like 40 people in like 5 minutes. And so I was like, you see? Like, I knew this was going to happen one day. Like, we have to be prepared. Because sometimes I'd call extra servers and they'd be like, why is there so many of us and there's no customers? I was like, you never know. You have to stay ready. And the one day that bus showed up and all those people started walking out, I was like, you see, it's happening now. So like, 40 people in 5 minutes. And there was probably more because then it got late to be Friday night. So then we had our regular customers coming. And so we usually had 70 people there and like 2 servers.
How did you manage it?
Call in. I worked, call in for backup. Those are the times I was washing dishes, helping like make drinks, I took my own tables on.
How did you find backup that quickly?
People that were off, just kind of call them in.
Got it.
I actually called in a friend one time. I called in. My mom offered to help one time. Like,
love it.
I got on Indeed one time and I found a bartender from Torchy's Tacos. Was like, "Can you come?" And she was like, "Yeah, I'm on the way." Yeah.
You're like, I'll pay double.
Actually, she's still there now.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah, you have a TBC. Yeah, you have your food handler. Yeah, I work at Torchy's. Okay, can you come? She was like, when? And I was like, can you come now? And she was like, yeah. And she was there in an hour. And didn't know our POS system and stuff. And she like hustled all the tables and stuff. But same thing with me. I don't know how to use the POS and how to put in food. So I had my little old-fashioned pad. And I would write the orders down. And I would take it to the kitchen. But like that's kind of, you just have to like do what you have to do.
It reminds me, I was, like I said, I just flew back to Minnesota, and at the airport when we got there, for whatever reason, it was bonkers busy, probably traveling for like the holiday weekend or whatever. And I was honestly genuinely impressed with how well they were able to manage this massive influx of people, because like, I think almost every single person in that line was like, well, I'm going to miss my flight. Cause like the line was wrapped like almost like going outside of the airport. There were so many people. And somehow like they managed to like step up the speed of the security line, and they had all these like all hands on deck, like getting people shuffled through the security line. I was like, damn, like I was actually very impressed. They probably get it a lot, but it just made me think of that when you're talking about this.
Yeah, like the Kim Kardashian thing, like you just have to be prepared. Like it could happen.
Totally.
Yeah, and so back to like a piece of advice. Like I was not prepared for the patients. I was not prepared for the customers at the restaurant. But be prepared, whether it's staff or a backup plan. Like be prepared for growth, and accept it. Like don't be like I don't want to grow. Like it's a good thing.
Do you think it's confidence, or do you think it's like just lack of experience that has allowed you to take on these challenges?
Lack of experience.
Okay. You know what I mean? Because like the way you describe having been able to figure out the ins and outs of some of these businesses is like literally just like throwing yourself in the fire and then just like stumbling along.
That's how because if I knew what I was getting myself into,
right,
I might not.
Yeah. Right.
So I take on projects and tasks, lack of experience, and I'm like, I can do this. And I walk in and I'm like, I pretend like I know what I'm talking about. And then things get done, and that just kind of boosts my confidence. And I'm like, okay,
yeah.
Even though I don't know, I'm doing good so far. So far, so good. So.
Are there any businesses you wanted to start, but you're glad that you decided not to, that would have just like crashed and burned?
No, because the rest of what I want to do or have plans to do is real estate. So, I mean, I still could, financially,
sure,
if you don't have your ducks in a row and you don't have your finances to support real estate, because that can get expensive, especially with investing or flipping, whatever it is that you do. But I think that customers, like if I do something else business-wise, it might not involve, I might not do another restaurant, but I might definitely do something else. But
residential or commercial?
Commercial.
Okay.
Yeah, there's a lot of need for like medical office suites, but
West Texas?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You're just like going to be the queen of West Texas. It sounds like there's just like a need for everything out there.
There is a need for and I'm trying to meet everybody's needs. I'm like, what do you need? What's the need here? Like, okay, let's do that. I mean, I was going to do crushed concrete aggregate at one point. Because I went to Dallas, and I saw this, like my dad already had the pit and stuff, and they were demolishing. So they were putting concrete, it's called RCA, I think it's called, recycled concrete aggregate, RCA. And it's like, so they are taking concrete and they're putting it in these giant machines, and then it's pulverizing it. And then you reuse the concrete, and it's double as sturdy and the longevity of it, because it's like recycled concrete aggregate. So it's going to be more durable, and you're helping the environment. It's like, this is a thing. Looked into the machine. It's like $250,000. Like, yeah, you know, and I want to do these things, and I'm like, I have to stop myself because there's a need. There's lots of need for lots of things, but you have to be willing to be focused, research your business, and give that time, both your time and financially be prepared for whatever business it is that you're going into to do. But I think, and real estate, probably. I have some property I haven't done anything with yet, but.
Like you purchased it and you're just sitting on it? Mm-hmm. Interesting.
Yeah. But people call my office and want to rent like some of my suites in my therapy rooms. And I'm like, my therapists need it. But if a room comes available, I'll let you know. And I'm like, well, I have that land, or I have that land.
Yeah, just build an office and let them use it. Yeah. Interesting. What do you think it is about West Texas? Do you think it's just because people out there aren't as entrepreneurial inclined? Is it because people don't want to live out there? Like, there's not a lot of skill? Like, what is it?
I think it's just all oil filled. A lot of oil filled. I think people that are there, they're there to work, and there's a lot of business owners. There's a lot of money there, but I think that they're like investors in oil field companies, but they don't spend their money there. I think that's why we don't have a lot of like businesses or things to do, and why there's a need, because they go spend their money. They make their money there. There's money there, but then every weekend, everybody's gone, to Dallas, to Las Vegas, to Austin. And so when somebody's looking for something to do there, whether it be a restaurant or a club or a mall, there's nothing to do here. So there's a need for service, for businesses and stores, because people don't stay there. They go and they leave elsewhere because there's really nothing there. But that's why there's nothing there, why there's a need for any kind of service at this point. There's limited restaurants, it's not a place where and I think that's why I have a hard time finding providers. It's not a place where you can go to have fun on the weekends. You can go to the restaurant, you can go to the local mall. There's just not a lot of entertainment.
Interesting.
Or other types of services. Yeah, it's like oil field work. And business owners that are there in the area, they don't even live there. They live in Houston or something. So they fly in, they work, and then they fly back out. But people aren't really growing their businesses there.
Totally. Which makes sense. I mean, if you were to ask me, you'd have to drag me kicking and screaming to get me out of Austin at this point. But the good thing from that, though, is I've always thought okay, let's say worst case scenario, and I have no money and I can't even afford rent and I have to live on the street. I could probably just go to West Texas and figure something out. It's not going to be a glamorous living situation, and there's not going to be probably much to do, but at least I could make a living and do something, right?
Yeah, somebody will open a barber shop and then it's packed.
Yeah.
Somebody will open a burrito shop and then there's a line. There's just a need there's so many people.
Yeah.
There's so many people, and there's just not enough services for those people. My attorney was working on something for me for one of the businesses, and she was like, we are backed up. And I was keep hearing that. She was like, anybody in West Texas, and whether it be an attorney, a therapist, a doctor, it's going to be months before we can get to you.
Damn.
She was like, so that's us. There's just not enough of us. She was like, I have the same problem you have. There's not enough of us.
Interesting. Yeah. So what has been the parallels, or I guess almost the differences, I guess you could say, between now? How long have you had the clinic here in Bee Cave?
5 months.
5 months. Okay. So what have you noticed the differences between the clinic in West Texas versus this one here in Austin in terms of challenges, patients, hiring, that sort of thing?
The difference is there's more providers here in Austin. Actually, I have therapists emailing me asking me if I have a job, if I have an opening, for a job for them. Versus in West Texas, there's no providers. Unless you have business there, you're in my case, my therapist husbands work in the oil field. They're engineers, they're geologists. They're not even from there. They're from Oklahoma. I have a therapist from, different.
Yeah, they're probably super transient there. I suppose they are in Austin as well.
And so when they're there, then they work, then they find work. But they're there because they have to. Unless you have family or business there, you don't just really move there. So at my other clinic, I have I have a wait list for patients, but I don't have enough providers. Can't find therapists. Here in Austin, there's tons of therapists, and then I'm slow to grow my patients. There is a need for patients. And as soon as, word, it's only been 5 months and I'm up to 35 patients. And I'm like, it's moving a lot faster here, patient-wise.
Which challenge would you rather have? A lack of clients or a lack of hires?
The lack of hires.
Really? Mm-hmm. Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
High demand of customers. Yeah, that's a good problem to have.
Yeah, so that way they're always rotating, and if I don't have to market, people go and they're like, "Hey, would you like to buy an ad?" And I'm like, "No."
Yeah.
In West Texas, I'm like, "No." They're like, "Oh, would you like to sponsor? Your ad's going to be here at the college football." And I'm like, "No, don't put my ad anywhere." Yeah.
If you're going to advertise for hiring people.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Versus here, it's the opposite. So, still kind of reaching out into the community that we're here, that we are offering services, plenty of therapists. So the good news is, though, looking ahead, as the patients come and we continue to grow, it's not going to be a problem for me to hire, a speech pathologist or other therapists. So
how do you think, you mentioned it briefly, but how else do you think you're going to overcome that challenge of getting customers, patients into the clinic? Obviously getting involved with the marketing, probably referral partners around the local area, I'm sure, maybe running ads. I don't know. Have you thought about it?
All my customers or patients at this point are coming from Google. There's been no local providers.
Like Google Maps?
Yeah, like Google search.
Yeah.
Speech therapy, BK, speech therapy, Lakeway, speech therapy, Austin, occupational therapy.
How are you getting those in front of people? How are they finding that?
They're searching themselves. They're doing the work.
Got it. Cool.
I'm doing the work. We're doing the work.
So you created like a Google business profile, and then they're searching for it, and then they're like calling or reaching out or whatever. Mm-hmm. Got it. Cool.
Austin's a little bit different. Whereas back home, I'd go knock at a doctor's door, and they'd be like, "Oh, you're just accepting new patients." Bam, 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 bam. The fax machine would start going off. And then here I'm like, "Hi, we're accepting new patients in Austin." And she's like, this is like everybody. Austin's different. Well, we need patient reviews and references, and I need to come see your clinic. And then even my patient parents are like, "We'd like to interview you and let's see your resume and come to the clinic first before we bring our child, or before we bring our." Yeah, it's been interesting.
Well, yeah.
Cool.
Well, and which again, I guess makes sense, because when you think about the general Austin area, there's an ass load of providers and clinics and services and from every angle of healthcare you could ever imagine.
Yeah, so they're picking. They have choices. They have options.
Right.
Whereas back home, there's only 3 outpatient rehabs for $250,000 about Odessa, $250,000 about Midland, maybe 500,000+ population between the two cities. Huh. It's like Dallas, Fort Worth, but on a smaller scale. So it's a little metro.
So why did you decide, was it selfish? And I don't mean that in a bad way, but why did you decide even to open one in Austin then, right? If the opportunity might have been, if you started looking in, we'll say North Texas, maybe it's the same problem where there's a high demand for it and you could have opened a clinic there, and it also could have been super high client patient load. I think
what it came down to was, where do if I could move somewhere?
Okay, so it is partly selfish.
Yeah.
You want to be in, okay.
If I could move somewhere, where would I go? Because I might be spending some time there.
Yeah.
I might grow to spend the majority of my time there. Matter of fact, maybe one day I'll sell my West Texas clinic. Where do I want to continue my business? Where do I want to continue to grow my business?
Totally.
I have a son at Texas State. I have one in Austin. And so I'm I kept pulling this way. So it was wait, I can come here, but what am I going to do for work?
Totally get it. So are you splitting your time then between West and Austin? Mm-hmm, okay. Mm-hmm. How often do you have to go back to West?
Every 2 weeks.
Oh, that's not bad.
No, not bad.
Just to pop into the clinic and show face?
Yeah, and I see patients that I have patients on my caseload. I specific because of bilingual, or I do myofascial release for dysphagia. I do a lot of hand-on type stuff, and so I have patients maybe head and neck cancer with neck fibrosis. Seek me out specifically, and so when I go back, I have my people waiting for me to see me. They could see anybody else, but they're but I already started working with Tanya. We've developed a relationship and rapport. I'm gonna wait for her next week. She'll be here or whatever. And so I go back and I have my schedule's full. When I go back, Monday morning, 8 a.m. I need to put my tennis shoes on and hit the ground running.
So have you thought about doing virtual?
I have, and that's something I'm kind of, I think, trying to organize, because I have providers here, I have patients there, even like teletherapy between my providers here into my West Texas to try to alleviate and reduce some of that patient weight that we have over there. So I think that's what I'm working on now is teletherapy.
Yeah.
I know it's something that like should have already been doing, but it's almost like after COVID and all of that, everything normalized. We like forgot all about teletherapy. We forgot about the ability to be able to treat patients and to be able to make contact via Zoom. I mean, before that, we did it then. We were successful. Like, why did I think of that?
Totally. Yeah, because it just made me think of, I have a client of mine he's a physical therapist, and it's all remote. He does, it's called like Align PT, and they help people with like ergonomic related things. But yeah, he just recently moved to like Bend, Oregon. He was up in Minnesota with me. He can work anywhere because he does all of his PT remote. But
yeah, honestly, like I forgot about it.
Yeah.
I didn't do anything.
Well, there you go. Yeah.
Yeah. And like literally last week, like my office manager and admin, we sat down and we were like, wait a minute, we have therapists in Austin. We have patients here. Why not do some teletherapy?
Yeah, the internet. Yeah, for sure.
So yeah, that's something I'm trying to organize right now. So that's going to be super helpful. It's not going to alleviate reduce
Well, it won't take everybody.
But that's going to help for sure.
Yeah. Obviously, not every patient will be okay or want that, and that's cool. Like, that's not the point of it.
Even if it was like 10 patients, that's 10 patients that were waiting on a wait list that now can receive services.
1,000%, for sure. So, not that I'm telling you how to run your business, but
that's great. That's I literally like last week we just sat down and had a meeting. We're like, wait a minute, why don't we like do some teletherapy? We're like, why didn't anybody else think of this? Come on, ladies. Like, yeah,
that's funny. Well, cool. Yeah. And I get it. And I get the appeal to wanting to be in Austin. I mean, honestly, like the future plan for me is to have a small ranch just outside of Austin. Luckily, I was telling you, my girlfriend, her practice is just outside of Bee Cave, so she can't be super far from it, but I can be pretty much wherever. So somewhere just outside of Austin would be nice for us, for sure.
It's beautiful. Yeah. That's my thought too, coming in the future. I'm already like, where am I going to live?
Yeah.
Not in Austin, but a little on the outskirts for sure.
For sure. Totally get that. Something I wanted to make sure to touch on, because we share a background in the bodybuilding space. It's cool. We were both in the, I'm not going to say mine was bikini, but definitely swimsuit attire.
Cool.
I did the physique stuff, but yeah, I saw that you got into that in, what was it, 2019, I think it was. And now it's like a consistent part of your life. Every couple of shows a year. Yeah. So you already had a couple of shows this year? Or
yeah, no, not yet.
Oh.
This is about the time.
Okay.
This is about the time. I do stay ready. They say like all the work happens in the off season. Don't wait to prep for a show before you're ready for it. So I can say I'm pretty consistent year round and I'm constantly working. I don't like wait till like, okay, it's November. Mentally, I might do that. Like, oh wait, it's like September. I have 2 months. But initially it took me like 16 to 18 weeks to get ready for a show. Yep. Whereas now I can get ready for a show in like 8 to 10 weeks.
Love it.
Once I pick a show, I'm like, I can jump in 8 to 10 weeks because I've kind of been doing it that long.
And do you stick with it just because like it continues to give you something to work towards?
Absolutely.
Okay.
I was talking about accountability. I go to the gym and I do that. But when I have a show planned, I make that cardio at 5 a.m. My diet is super strict. And I like to see the end result of my physique after. And so I think that it's that accountability. Like if I'm not ready, I'm going to go on stage and like not place.
Totally.
And so it's that having a coach and having a plan and having a show date that really sets me in that state of mind of being focused and completing that goal. If I don't have a show, yeah, I'll go to the gym, but yeah, I might fall off, but having a show. So I feel like doing that annually. And then it became like, well, now I want my pro card, and then I was runner up twice at Masters in Scottsdale the last couple of years. And I'm like, now that makes me want to go back to nationals and, try again, and then now it becomes more than accountability. It was like, now I have a goal to get my pro card, and, but always setting goals. But yeah, so at least once a year, at the end of the year, I need to probably do like one a little more in the summer, but yeah, at least once a year I prep, I jump in, I do like a warm-up show, and then I'll go do a national show.
I would encourage literally anybody to listen to sign up for something. Because like exactly to that point, I experienced the exact same thing. And every time I've ever signed up for something, there's something that happens in your psychology that changes, that kind of like pushes you a little bit harder and differently. Like each time I did a show, there's something that happens where like I'm about to get in front of people basically naked and they're going to judge me and there's going to be a bunch of people there that like when you're now in the gym or you have to eat a meal or whatever the case might be it's like you're going to do it because like there's all this external pressure. But I have found that every single time I sign up for something, I've kind of moved on from the competing in bodybuilding and now do more like high rock shows, and I got into running and running half marathons and that sort of thing. But the exact same thing happens, right? Is like when I know that there's a race or a competition coming up, you don't want to look like an idiot, right? No matter what it is. And so it's like just the act of signing up for something, I think is vastly underestimated for most people, regardless of whatever it is, right?
Yeah,
like
yeah.
some sort of
you
physical
could do
endeavor.
a 3K.
Totally.
You could do anything like, and yeah, being in that, competitive type state and doing for you and like not looking a fool on stage, like all of that will really push you to do things you didn't think you could do.
Totally. It's happened to me every time.
Yeah.
Like even with running, I never ran. I thought it was the dumbest thing of all time. And I didn't get into it until a couple of years ago when I signed up for a race because there were some people I wanted to run a half marathon with. And now it's become a very big staple in my life and I do a lot of it now. But it's only because I signed up and like went through the pain of like knee pain and hip pain and like crazy soreness and hating it and like your lungs are on fire and it's like the dumbest thing ever. And now it's just like a part of my life.
Kind of like cold plunging. Like I did it because a friend invited me and I was like, sure, I'll do it. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is horrible. And then once you do it a few times, you're like, wait, now this is therapeutic. Now, you know what? This makes me stronger and, and more lean muscle mass, and then it's like you see the benefits. But initially it was like I signed up, didn't physically sign up, but like I'll be there. I made us an appointment at 2 p.m. Okay, I'll be there. So I signed up. You show up and you have to like force yourself to do these things.
Totally. Yeah, the art of signing up for the thing. So for anybody listening, if you're not signed up, honestly though, it's been a life hack for me. I've even I can go over
sign up.
Yeah, I can go over example over example. But the other thing I wanted to touch on as well though was even like some of the parallels between bodybuilding, training, weight training, and just general business and life. I'd be curious as to what you've learned, and just like to give a quick example, like something that I learned from the parallels between them is just the act of working hard towards something and then seeing the result. I've seen that in both so many times it's ridiculous. I'd be curious as to what some of the parallels you've noticed between the two. Absolutely.
You work hard towards a goal. Whether it be like it's the same thing in bodybuilding. So actually how it's helped me is I have trouble getting up in the morning. And so once I started doing cardio, once I get to do an intense cardio, I'm more productive at work, because I'm now an early riser. And so just like I have the goal to get on stage, I have the goal to I'm more productive at work. Without having that goal, it was like secondary too. As a result of getting up early, having more energy, being at work an hour earlier, because now I left the gym. Well, I'm not going back home to go to sleep. I'm going to go to work at 7 a.m., but I guess I still do that. And so I think that being more productive, in the time that I'm in prep, I'm more productive at work. When I'm not in prep, I'm less productive at work.
Just because you're dialed in, probably.
Yeah. So I feel like, you know what? I'm not going to make it to the gym because I have all these notes to do. So like I need to finish my work so that I can get to the gym. Otherwise, like I'm at the gym and I'm like, I didn't do that. I need to finish that report. I have these notes to do. I have payroll to do. And so it's like, I'm more productive at work because I need to get to the gym. I know.
Totally.
So I'm earlier to get to work and I'm more productive because I did cardio at 6 a.m. because I'm prepping for a show, and so I think that bodybuilding and gym, it goes also with the physical exercise of it, right? When you're doing cardio, when you're physically active and physically fit, you just feel better overall.
Totally.
And I think that since my diet's clean and my workouts are good, I'm great, I might not show up with makeup and my hair done because, I'm going through it, but I'm more productive. So yeah, for sure. I see the correlation.
Do you know who Tim Ferriss is? Mm-mm. He's a popular podcaster. He wrote the book called The 4 Hour Workweek. But anyways, he had something said something at South by Southwest. This was probably a couple of years ago that has stuck with me ever since. And he said, energy is the ultimate currency. And what he meant by that statement was that like when you have the energy to do something or you're excited about doing something is that you're going to outwork anybody else to do that thing. So like actually working hard or having energy or taking care of yourself and just like continuing to do it is going to give you a massive life and business advantage. And I think there's just so much truth to that statement, as opposed to like grinding through it and grogging and you're going to want to quit and you want to give up. It's like, if you have the energy to do something, you will outlast anybody. And I just thought there was a lot of truth to that.
Cool. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. So I took a note here about you. I don't know if this was from one of your bodybuilding shows, but you were dehydrated and you still made it to a show. Can you share this?
I was in the stage phase, like right before you go on stage, where you're like kind of I guess dehydrating, you know, to be able to show like your muscles on stage and whatnot. And I was I think I was taking a diuretic and I was drinking lots of water. And then I ended up getting dehydrated, ironically, because like everything was just going right through me, right? The diuretic. And so I ended up in the hospital 3 days before my birthday. So it was like December 3rd or 4th. My birthday's December 7th. And it was a national show. I was like, this whole time I'm laying in bed, they would bring me my meals, my hospital meals. And
I'm sure those were healthy.
And I would like take, and I was like, I'm looking, I can like, even then, like it's crazy, the mentality of competition and of when you have a goal. I was taking out the bread and the carbs and I was like only eating the meat. If it was like Salisbury steak or chicken and so like I was only eating the meat and the vegetables. Even in that state in the hospital, I was like eating protein, and like if it wasn't rice, I was either requesting rice, and still. So then I got discharged 3 or 4 days later, after they like loaded me up with electrolytes and got my potassium back up and all of that. And I jumped on the plane and still made it to Scottsdale. All right, we might have been in Anaheim, California at this
Did you have
time.
a coach at this point?
Yeah.
What did they say?
Yeah. I didn't use that coach anymore after that. I have a new great coach now, but yeah.
Well, yeah, you ended up in the hospital.
Yeah.
Like.
So yeah, I went to the show, and after that, he wasn't my coach anymore. But yeah, I had a coach, and he was like, "I didn't tell you to drink that much water," and I was like, "Yes, you did." So, but I still made it, and I jumped on stage, and I still placed. And I remember like my hands had still like from the IV, like they had like. I still had like the IV holes, like the red pricks, like in my skin and stuff. And I still made it. And I jumped on stage and I got tanned and I still placed. And yeah, it's like the determination of.
Do you think it was the diuretic that just like flushed all the water out of your system?
Yeah, that's what they said.
Okay.
The diuretic basically.
Will you just take too much?
No, it was the water more than the diuretics. It was both part. And that's why it's important to like have a coach, obviously, that
water
is
as opposed to not having enough sodium and potassium.
I had too much water that apparently I rinsed my body out of all the electrolytes.
Oh yes. You're peeing clear as day. And yes.
And then I didn't feel well, so I was drinking more water.
Sure,
so
that makes sense.
Feel good. Maybe I'm dehydrated after.
Were you not
I drank
adding
2
salt
gallons.
or anything to it?
I was, but I was drinking so much water that it just any mineral that I had didn't have a chance to get like digested or absorbed because it was just flushing all out.
Makes sense.
Until I felt dizzy and stuff, and they were like, "Oh my God, like you have no potassium."
They're probably telling you to drink a gallon of water a day or
like
something.
2.5.
That's a lot. Yeah.
And I was chugging them. Yeah. And then I found a better coach, and he has years of experience, and he's amazing, and he's almost like a father.
Huh.
Yeah, he just takes care of you and his girls, and so he's been doing this for years and years. And so then after that, that's when I got my runner-up to my pro card that next year. And that happened, but still made it to the stage. So there's just been quite a bit of instances in my life where like I'm either in a hospital or something bad happens, and I'm like, it almost like it drives me to finish out whatever task I had set out and do even better. And like finish out the goal or the task that I had.
That's a good analogy for life, honestly, is like even the drinking of too much water, where it's like anything in excess, even if we would consider it healthy, isn't a good thing.
Right.
No matter what it is.
It doesn't. Mm-hmm. Just like protein. Like I had consumed so much protein one time, I had like extra like creatinine in my like liver or something. Like it's too much of anything in excess. Vitamins. Some people like they take vitamins without having like, I'm like, have you had blood work? They're like, no. but I'm taking like these 50 vitamins. And I'm like, well, have you considered I'm
Yeah,
not,
what are they doing? Yeah.
like, I'm not a doctor or anything, but like, yearly blood work is important,
It actually recently just happened to me. I got an IV. A friend of mine, she does like the IV drip stuff, mobile IVs, and she gave me a drip for B12. And then I recently had blood work done, and the coach, she was basically like, she's like, are you taking a? This is for, I don't take really any supplements, and she's like, are you taking a B12 supplement? And I was like, no, but I did get an IV rate recently. She's like, yeah, because this is the highest level of B12 I've ever seen. It was like off the chart. She's like, stop doing that. And I was like, noted. Okay.
Same thing with me. I was doing the sublingual B12.
Okay. Yeah.
I was like, what gives you energy?
Yeah.
And it was a tiny sublingual tablet. So I was popping them under my tongue once or twice a day, B12. Same thing. I had blood work and they were like, well, then I got a rash. I was
God.
they're like, yeah, you got, that's excessive B12. I was like, oh, okay. I started having blood work like every 6 months after that. So it's cool.
Yeah.
To be able to see that I'm, leveled out and everything.
Yeah. No matter like how perfect you think your diet and exercise regimen is like, if you don't have like blood work of some form, you just have no idea. You're just throwing darts. Like you're completely praying. Like at the end of the day.
Yeah. Blood work is so important.
The other thing I wanted to hit on quick too was when you first, I don't remember which business this was, but you were trying to get a bank loan and seemed to have some challenges landing a bank loan. What happened there?
Yeah. So that was going back to, my speech therapy clinic in Odessa back. I'm going to going on 8 years now. Initially, I talked about I was in a little like suites built in like the 1960s or 70s. And that 5 years I talked about, I was like, well, 5 years, I'm going to build me $1 million, outpatient facility with the gym. I had this whole vision. Well, I think about the financing part of it. So I go to a bank and I'm like, I need $1 million. And she's like,
That's what you said?
Yeah.
Where'd you come up with that number?
I think a builder had given me some quotes. I had like 2 different quotes or something. I was around the ballpark, 900, 1 point. Okay. No. Oh, okay. So I went to the next bank. No. And I was like, well, how do people do it? Like what? 4th bank. No. Maybe have you tried an SBA loan? And you hear from people like, oh, that takes months. Don't do an SBA loan. It's tons of paperwork. It could take 6 months. And so I didn't. I was just going conventional and trying to borrow $1 million, and easier said than done. And one day I was like, I'm going to stop listening to people. I'm going to go ahead and fill out this 20-page SBA loan. And I sat there day and night and I filled out like literally like all these pages. I mean, it was so much information. And finally, it was like literally like the 4th or 5th bank was like, okay. And I was like, what do you mean, okay? She was like, sure. Like,
let's do this.
Yeah, let's do this. And and the SBA in conjunction with, I think if it's over a certain amount, like you have to get like it's like another bank's involved in Dallas. I forgot what it's called. So like the SBA is a certain percentage and then the other bank's another percentage. But it combines to be like the $1 million loan. But yeah, they're like, sure, like let's do that. Okay. But initially, like it was just so frustrating. So like I like to talk about that because I like to tell people, kind of like Dr. Seuss went to like it just reminds me of that, like Dr. Seuss or Walt Disney, and you hear all of their stories. But it's just true. Like don't give up, and you keep on and you keep on and don't give up until you're heard and until you go to the right people. It's all timing. Like it's got to be the right person, the right ear, and the right time.
Totally.
Yeah. And she was like, this is great. This is a great idea. Sure. Like, let's get the ball rolling. And literally like in 4 months, I had my funds to build that $1.3 million building.
Would you do it again? Like, would you do an SBA loan again?
Mm-hmm.
You would? Okay. Interesting.
Yep.
Because, I mean, your options are what? Like having some sort of private investor, somebody you go to a big bank, or you do an SBA. Like, I mean, those are pretty much your options.
Yeah, it's crazy because like conventionally I would have had to give down like $300,000 or something. Ooh. I didn't give anything down with the SBA. I don't think I gave $1. I don't know if that's changed. Don't quote me on that.
Yeah.
It's been a 3 years maybe, because we've been in my new building 2 years plus the year that it took to build and all that. But they take into account the money I gave the architect and the engineer, this $20,000 I spent on engineering and blueprints. And I mean, you put that money into that build. And so they're going to give you credit for that. The land I had purchased that I had already paid 2 years into. So like they considered all of that. It wasn't just, this is what our bank needs from you. It was, they're like there to help the people. I'm a big advocate for the Small Business Administration.
Dope.
They actually did an article on me.
I heard.
Yeah. I
Small
Googled
Business
myself.
Owner of the Year or something like that?
Yeah, I didn't actually see the article when it came out, but I Googled myself. Like I just put like my name and put SBA, and they had a story on me. They were like local West Texan, builds, to the need of the people. And I was like, hey, like I never saw the story. I saw it a year later.
Damn.
Like they didn't tell me.
That seems odd.
But then the next year I got Business Person of the Year. Like, so it was a whole different like article that they did for the SBA, a success story or something, which I didn't know about. But then the next year, which was like, I think last year or the year before, I got the Business Person of the Year for our market for like Odessa. And that I knew about because I had to be present to receive the award. But they were like, I saw a story on you in the SBA. And I was like, really? And I Googled myself and I was like, yeah. And it was really like touching. I was like, this is great. Like, oh, that's a good story.
And they didn't even talk to you. That's weird.
Yeah.
So
yeah, it was like local West Texan. Yeah, and it like had me and my staff, picture of me and my staff and stuff. It was super cool.
I love it. Well, okay, so we got the original clinic in West Texas. You had a restaurant. You opened a new clinic here in Austin. I don't want to try to put a bug in your ear, but I would be curious as to like what would be next for you if you were to do something else.
I think the need for medical office suites, because I think. Me personally, when I was looking for a suite space, I didn't want to go set up shop as a therapist in a location that had like a bunch of restaurants. Or I didn't want to go set up shop in a place that was like a tattoo studio and I would have put my bar there. I would have put my restaurant there.
Sure.
It just depends on what the business is. And I think back where I live, and I don't think that's the case here in Austin, but I think that there's a need for specific like medical office buildings because providers want to be close to providers because they can collaborate, they can refer to other providers. You have a good networking area within a close vicinity for patients to be able to drive from point A to point B, go to that doctor next door, go to that doctor down the street. And there's a big need for that. So I think that's probably next. Would I open another bar or restaurant here in Austin? My restaurant in Odessa, Fuego, would hit here in Austin. Yeah, I think Odessa's not the market for it. Like I said, there's just, hungry people that just want big plates. But
Sure.
I think my concept of...
Tapas?
Yeah, and the pallets I had hanging from the ceiling and chairs hanging from the ceiling. And it was just super funky. I had like old guitars and old bikes hanging on the walls.
Oh my God, Austin would love that.
It was a super cool vibey. I had an old phone booth.
Oh yeah, Austin would love that.
Super cool. Like just the vibe of it was so awesome. It just didn't fit there. But I'm like, if I could pick that restaurant up and move it to Austin, like that would be cool here. So maybe like I've even thought like in the future, I keep saying I wouldn't do it again, but I might do it again. I already did it once and I was successful.
Have you been to, I think this name's correct, Mean-Eyed Cat? Do you know what I'm talking about? It's off of West 6th, I want to say, next to Star Bar, I think. But it's kind of like what you're talking about. It's there's like a tiki bar with like a phone booth and a DJ, and then they have like jet skis just like sitting there that you can like sit on and take photos with, and like all sorts of cool stuff hanging on the ceiling and stuff.
Yeah, I had an old piano. It didn't work, but like
Nice.
The piano was like the hostess stand. Yeah, super vibey. It just wasn't for the area. It wasn't for like West Tech. They're like,
No.
we want to play the food.
Right,
we want to
right.
go.
Yeah.
But if I picked it up and brought it here, like if I could do it again, I might.
Huh.
Here in Austin, though.
Yeah. I don't know if
I don't know. Maybe in Bee Cave. Who knows?
Like I said, I don't want to put a bug in your ear, but I was just curious. I have a round of rapid fire questions. It's whatever the first thing is that comes to your mind. What's your best business advice?
Take a risk.
What's your best marketing advice?
Face-to-face, door-to-door marketing.
Yeah, you're a great networker. I'm not gonna lie. What's your favorite part about entrepreneurship?
Making my own schedule.
When are you the most productive?
In the morning.
Doing your cardio?
Doing cardio.
Knew it. Who is your inspiration?
My mother and father.
Love it. That's great. It's great that you have that. Not a lot of people do. Tell me one secret or something most people don't know about you.
I like to eat chicken hearts for protein snacks.
Have you always been that way, or is it a new trend?
No, I always have. I don't know. My like dad used to kill goats, just like it was like a Mexican tradition to like kill a goat. And I know that's a big heart, not a chicken heart, but like nonetheless, they would like make food with like the innards, like it was like the kidneys and the liver, like organ meats, and just in the oven, like, and it just, I don't know, I guess that taste kind of stayed with me. You have to acquire taste sometimes for like liver. Not everybody likes liver or things like that, organ meat, but I do. And like, I don't know, I'll like boiled chicken hearts or liver with salt, and I'm like, yep, that's a snack. And people that don't know, they're like, what? And I'm like, yeah, that's why I don't tell people.
So it's a secret.
Like that reaction.
Yeah. That's actually a great one. It's become very Austin. I mean, there's a lot of people hungry for organ meats in this town.
Really? See, I knew I was coming to the right place.
Oh, yeah. I'm surprised you haven't noticed that. Yeah, like if you go to the farmer's market, it's actually becoming...
So I bought some at the farmer's market.
Yeah.
And Pedernales or something out here. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a thing now.
Okay, then I'm feeling like, yes, like I'll probably let my secret out more.
Because it's, is it carnivore blend? Caveman blend, I think it's what it's called. But anyways, they're doing a lot more like beef, heart, liver blends now. Because like generally speaking, liver doesn't taste great to most people, so they'll blend it in beef or something. But it's very popular in Austin.
Cool.
Yeah, fun fact. Along with raw milk, it's become crazy expensive. What would you change about yourself?
That would be time management. It's simple, just like time management. Yeah.
What's your favorite app or resource right now?
I'm reading a book called Clone Yourself.
Tell me more.
I think it's Jeffrey Hilderman.
Okay.
And it's been helpful. It's almost like here's a crazy story about it. I got into an airplane, and I was like thinking to myself, how do I clone myself? Like how I need to like have people like me, like to think like me, to help me out, and I'm not kidding. This is a true story. And in the pocket in front of me in the airplane, like there was a book, and I pulled the book out, and it's called Clone Yourself.
Of course it was. By
Jeffrey, I think it's like Hilderman or something, Hildman. And it's like a guideline, but it's time management. It talks about doing a time journal. Like, what did you do from 8 a.m. to 7 p.m.? And then you break it up from hour increments into like 30-minute increments to see like where you're most productive and where you could utilize, where you're wasting time and how you could utilize that time better. It's just like this whole, it's just so interesting. I'm only halfway, and it was a year ago. But every now and then I open it and I'm like, yes, I don't always implement all of it, but it's just it's a good resource. As well as like, on Instagram, like I follow like Dr. Stephen Lin. He does a dental diet because I work in the mouth, a lot. And so it talks about how prehistoric diet, as time goes, our diets get soft, our jaws and mandibles are shrinking because we don't have that prehistoric diet of chewing on things and using our masseters and things like that. So a lot of mouth health type stuff. And the book on cloning yourself just has been really helpful in like leadership and how to manage my time, because I need time management skills to improve on that. Just in general, it's just been a really good book.
Have you stumbled upon Cal Newport yet? I mean, he's my godfather when it comes to time management. He's written a couple of books. So Good They Can't Ignore You, Deep Work. His most recent one is Slow Productivity. But he's phenomenal in that space. Cool. And then also too, you had to have stumbled upon, or at least I'm sure you've read Breath by James Nestor.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. That's a great book.
Yeah. And there's several others that I've read along the way, that have been helpful. But yeah, and mainly that's airplane reading. That's why that book is only halfway.
Yeah.
Like I can't read anywhere else. If I try it from a passenger in a car, like I'll go to sleep. Yeah. So like the airplane's the only like time I ever read. So if I fly once or twice a month, the book gets read once or twice a month.
Do you fly from Central to West, or do you
It's a 45-minute flight. Not always, but if I need my car, I'll drive. But it's a 40. There didn't used to be a direct flight from Odessa Midland to Austin. That happened about a year ago. It's a 45-minute flight.
No kidding.
Yeah, it could be like $80 to like $100. Yeah.
Worth it. What keeps you motivated?
My drive to continue to be successful and to kind of see what else I can do and really challenge myself, like to be better.
Love it. What's your favorite part about Austin? And you can't say the people.
The trails. Yeah, I found a lot of trails. The trees and the trails.
Got a favorite?
So I probably already know this. I don't know what it's called. I parked on the side of the road. I was feeling kind of anxious. It's out here. There's a bridge. A lot of people like go up there and take pictures.
Yes. I don't know what it's called. I know what you're talking about.
So I was feeling anxious. I don't know why. And it was last month. It was like a cloudy day, and I got off the car, and there was a little trail, and I walked up, and then all of a sudden, like, I could see the river and the bridge, and I like sat up there, and like I took a little hike on my own. But just wherever I see a trail, really, I pull over. There's like some in Bee Cave, and I'll usually run around the lake downtown.
Ladybird,
like that.
You're a runner?
I'm a jogger, sprinter.
I mean, that counts. Whatever.
Yeah.
You move faster than a walk.
I usually 3 miles is my max.
Love it. Should be running with my girlfriend. That's her thing too. She's a good 3-4 miler.
Yeah.
Anything more than that.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's why I had to set my limits when you said right. I was like 3 miles is like my max. I'm like I don't do those like 6 mile, or like I've heard people do more, but yeah, about 2 to 3 miles is my max. At least 3 to 4 times a week.
Damn, love it. I have one last question. Before I ask that question, though, I want to acknowledge you for continuing to just chase your dreams and your passions and staying curious and trying things and being willing to fail and to do so with a heart of service and wanting to help a lot of people, and obviously training and hiring and treating. And it seems like you're just like working with a lot of people on a day in and day out basis. And I just want to acknowledge that. It's great.
Thank you.
For sure. Before I ask my last question, what's your plug? Where can people find you?
So WestTexasSpeech.com, Thrivetherapy, Texas.com. Instagram is going to be Tanya _fit SLP. And both of my businesses also have Instagram handles, and all of that you can find off of the website or even on my personal Facebook. I have links to all of that, and my Instagram has links back to my websites as well.
Cool. Awesome. Last question. It's really whatever your best piece of advice is to, if you were to go back to ground zero of starting your business, starting your practice of West Austin speech therapy, what's maybe the best piece of advice you would give to your younger self or anybody else in that circumstance?
To take a risk. I know that you're never really ready, and you never will be ready. So I think that a lot of the times, a lot of what held me back was I'm not ready, whether it's financially or physically or mentally prepared, but I think you just have to dive in.
Great advice. Thanks for being on the show.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Hey friend, thanks for listening to the show. If you have any feedback from me about the show or any other guests you'd like to see come on, definitely shoot me a message. I love engaging with my audience so that I can provide the most value possible to the listeners. Before you go, I only have one ask of you, and that would be to check out the Health Hustle newsletter. It's 3 marketing tips that's written every Tuesday specifically for health-related business owners to help them attract new leads. If you click the link in the description, it'll take you to the archive of all my previous newsletters, and you can decide for yourself if it's for you. If you end up finding it entertaining or helpful in any way, you can sign up for the newsletter and you'll get it in your inbox every Tuesday. Thanks again, and keep hustling, my friends.